Yeah, fantastic. Oh no, have I frozen again?
Yep.
You're frozen. Maybe you'll just kick back in.
So did you, Mark?
Yeah, let's see.
I'm
Oh,
frozen
it's doing the
too.
bloody upload thing.
Why don't we turn off the upload thing?
Yeah, I realised that. I'm just going to try and find it in the settings. Well, this is going to be super interesting for the people watching us. Recording
we are
cannot be
live.
changed during a live stream. Oh, so people are going to have to put up with it. I'm going to change my camera down to a lower resolution. Yeah, normally when I stream, I have the door and the window open. It lets a bit of air in, and it also makes the internet a bit better because my routers. I've got an outdoor router that feeds into the workshop, and it's a bit rainy today, so I can't do that. Oh, it looks terrible. Am I back to normal?
No, you're still lagging.
I'll leave you two to do all the talking, maybe.
We can hear you just fine. You're just lagging the video. Yeah.
All right, I'll do one more attempt, which is I can change my video to my front camera. Here we go. There we go. I'll go to this camera. No, it's frozen. There we go.
Hey, there
this
you
camera's
go.
not as good. Yeah. I'm using my built-in Chromebook camera, which is not as good, but you can see the demon next to me instead.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did
This
you
was
3D
a
print
prop.
that?
No. This was a prop that I took to a couple of guitar shows. It was from a game, a kind of role-playing game with lots of figures in it, and they did a Kickstarter campaign, and for an extra 150 quid, wow, you could get a limited edition, biggest mini print ever. So I bought it and highly customized it. So built a new head on it and stuff on it. It was basically, I bought it as just a kit to paint and build, and loved it. But there you go. Right.
Awesome.
So how is everyone? We've got a few people in the chat. Apologies everyone for that technical thing at the beginning.
We got Ray back. Ray's here.
Yeah.
We got to catch up.
I'm doing great. I'm awesome.
So Ray, let us go straight in at it, right?
Right.
Just off air, I was saying to Ray how much I love this guitar that's in the background behind him, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said it was about 2 years of work before you're happy with the design of it all. The current.
Yeah, it was 2 years, and there was a lot of toing and froing and going backwards and forwards about what I wanted with the design, how I wanted it to flow, the overall look. And there was actually quite a bit of, I'm saying quite a bit, there was actually a lot of actually self-confidence to actually put it out there. Like I could make like something like a Dinky or a Meteora or a 7-string Telly, and I knew that it was going to work. It was a proven method. It was something that everyone was going to like. And if they didn't like it, it was like, okay, well, that's not my fault. They don't like Telecasters. It's for what it's worth. If you don't like Telecasters, you have a problem. But to actually turn around and put out a design that was completely 100% original, all from up here, that meant that everyone who didn't like it didn't like me, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I actually, that was my biggest drawback before I could actually go, okay, I have this design, I'm rock solid with it, I'm good to go.
So
And if
tell us.
someone doesn't like it, then that's okay.
So tell us what's it called? It's got a name. Tell us about the shape. Where was it inspired by anything in particular? I'll zoom in so we can see it a bit better.
Inspiration for it, just lots of metal. I've always been a metalhead. The name, it is called the Malevolent. I went through a few different names: the Malevolent, the Maleficent. Even tried calling it the Malignant for a while. My partner didn't think that was a very good idea, so ended up sticking with the Malevolent. And yeah, it was also not just the idea, but it was also the creating that particular shape. There was a lot of things in there that I had to learn and relearn how to do in CAD, so to speak. So some of the curves basically start on the front of the guitar and they go all the way through to the back. It's also got some. It's got fillets that will turn into a chamfer, so they're like a curved edge that then go into a hard 45. Getting those to flow nicely was I'm going bald, and I think I blame that guitar for trying to get everything done, and it was a really big learning curve in Fusion, and just learning how to CAD again, because it was everything that I'd learned I kind of had to relearn.
So why is that different from, for example, when you're recreating a model? Is it because you've just done something that's a little bit more complicated than the standard designs that you would normally be copying? The way you're talking about the curves going from front to back seem.
Yeah, I want to say, if anything, I got lazy with my older designs. I got a little bit lazy and skills got rusty. Because it's very easy for okay, like you take something like this guy. I would just want a nice rounded edge, so I just put a 4.5 mil fillet all the way around the body. I'm done. It's set. It's easy. And if you're familiar with doing any sort of CAD work, when you do something like an armrest or a belly carve into a model, you have to learn a new skill. Instead, you're not just drawing a line and then saying, okay, put a chamfer on this that goes into the body. You have to basically, first off, you have to draw the carve, and then you have to create a sweep line where you want that carve to then go through. I know I'm explaining this in a really bad way. Mark, you probably understand where I'm sort of going, but
oh yeah. Yeah, there's so many different ways. Yeah, there's so many different ways to approach it, and it depends on the type of carve you want. But the armrest is a really good example, and you explained it just fine. You want to have your actual shape of the carve, and then you need to have a way to kind of like follow that path and cut as it's going along the path. That's one way to do it. There's also other ways to do it, but like I can see that bottom carve on the guitar that looks really extraordinary. The one at the very bottom. There's a really interesting sweep there that I want to get a closer look at.
So the carve you're referring to is that way.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh yeah, nice.
Look at that. That's cool.
So I'm really a beginner at CAD. I'm using Tinkercad, and in Tinkercad, to make any sort of carve like that, you essentially have the solid thing and build a negative and carve that negative into it. But you're saying with proper CAD, like more advanced CAD, you can draw and create the lines yourself to get it exactly as you want it.
Yeah. So I guess I'll try and explain it. Actually, probably easy to explain on this arm carve.
Yeah, that's nice.
So for this guy, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Helped my self-esteem, yeah. So for this guy, I drew this line in here, all the way down to the tip. Right? But then I flipped the guitar in CAD, and I drew a line from here all the way down. And at that point, I then turn around and I have to tell the CAD to basically take this line from here and bring it around. And it then just cuts all of that off. But where it got tricky is that curve changes. So
Yeah.
getting the CAD to do that was quite difficult. That's how you would create a normal arm carve in CAD. But when you want to change the gradient of that, you have to throw that whole sweeping idea just straight out the window. It just can't do it. Won't work. Well, it will, but everything is basically the same. So what you end up having to do, stay on you know what? It looks really good sitting like that. What you end up needing to do is you start working with what they call a loft, where it's basically you have the line on the bottom, so the side, and then the line at the very top, and you ask it to just basically create a face going up to it, and it'll attempt to follow the curve. It works sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense. It gives you so much more control than what I've done on Tinkercad of just cutting something out. But I can see how it takes a while to get to the design you want. Like when I'm physically carving wood, you can do a little bit of time and see it slowly change. But with the 3D models like that, obviously you can render it and etc. But did you do a lot of printing it and test prints so you can physically feel it, or you very much you're spatially aware enough that you can picture it?
No to that one as well. End of the day, like they all have. I'm seeing it as it appears on my screen. If I want to get an even better image of it, I can render it, and that sort of, it doesn't highlight the edges at that point. It just
Fusion even offers like analysis tools. So like we have a lot of like analysis tools in Fusion where you can like see curves. You ever do the zebra stripes? Yeah. So like instead of trusting a render and trusting photons of light bouncing off like a chamfer or an edge, you can do these zebra stripes and actually see where the actual curves and lines are going to see if you're off or see if the curvature is wrong. So there's like in quite a lot of like tools like that in Fusion that you can use.
That's neat.
I mean, if you like, give me a second here, and I can actually pull it up. I think.
Oh, that'd be cool. I'm seeing it. One thing that I can just about see on my screen is how cool the joins look, because obviously sometimes you do literally jigsaw pattern, but the pattern you pick there, it almost feels like not snake skin, but it's got something to it that makes it feel like it fits that metal look.
So the actual shape is it's actually a really unique shape. So it's called the Einstein tile, and nothing to do with Albert Einstein. Einstein as in one stone or one tile, so to speak. And the idea is that you can start laying these tiles down, and it is always going to be completely random, and the pattern will never actually repeat, despite how hard you try. You actually, the pattern will not naturally repeat itself in anywhere in the actual outlay. Let me just do a hang on.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm just going to tell you a story that I heard today, chatting to my friend Ben, who's a 3D printer as well, and into AI. And he was talking about a channel he follows on YouTube. I'll look it up in a minute. I think it's Mark Robert, something to do with maths. But he, amongst many other things, has used AI to develop things that you couldn't really do yourself, but are really, really creative. And one of them is to create a jigsaw where you put your jigsaw together like any other jigsaw puzzle, 500-piece puzzle, and you create a picture. But then all of the pieces can be rearranged and they fit together to make another perfect rectangular different picture using exactly the same bits, but the picture is different when you put it together in a different order, and the tiles will fit together. Incredible. So when you were just talking about the Einstein thing, I was thinking, wow, it's that other crazy tiling going on.
When it comes to jigsaw puzzles, I know I use them a lot, but I'm also the guy that, you know, I get really excited when I finish a puzzle in like 6 months because it says on the side of the box 3 to 6 years. You know.
Matt Parker.
All righty, I got that.
Oh, cool.
Got that just about ready.
I mean, one of the things I was thinking we could talk about today, before I saw that model just now, was how we test our instruments when we get to the end results. I'm very keen once you printed it, how you gave it a run through and knew it was right.
Yep. Okay. I just had to change the color of the guitar because it was too dark. You wouldn't actually really see it. But if I hit the share button,
yeah,
I understand. My screen. Oh, that's weird. Okay.
Oh, here it is. All right, I'll just. Oh, here we go.
All right, so we can see it. Okay, so those curves. You can just start to see here. Hang on, let me get rid of space. There we go. So that's where that curve came into play, and getting it to play ball was really difficult. Once I got it, I was ecstatic. I was really happy, and it's just like, good, ready to rock and roll. But then I wanted it to transition into this, and at that point, every method I just used got thrown out the window because it no longer worked. And this bevel on the actual horns was actually what took me the longest, getting those to flow. Because essentially I was trying to do it using that sweep method that I was talking about. And if you go through the sketches here, you can see all of these sketches, and those ones with the little red lock button on the side of them are basically sketches that are no longer useful on this project. That's because whatever is in them, I've deleted it, or I ended up what it was used to create is no longer there. I just kept changing and changing and changing. And there's 2 years of chaos in there. Einstein tile is there, so you can see what the actual tile looks like. That's I call it the t-shirts. Everyone else calls it the Einstein tile. But you can sort of see how the pattern simply doesn't repeat. You think you see a pattern, but then notice that the one beside it is totally different. It's in a different position.
I've got a feeling that this tessellating tile was something that was only discovered recently.
It was.
I remember reading about it. Incredible.
Yep, I think it was less than 15 years ago. And I just sort of saw it. I was looking for just some sort of pattern that I could cut a guitar into that would look cool. I just buried at the bottom of like page 6 of my Google search at the time was this. When I got it up there, it was just like, oh, this is it. This is perfect. and I've actually used this particular like cutting tool for so many different guitars. Now, what is really interesting is, as you know, I use the jigsaw puzzle shape a lot, and I've always loved it because the pieces interlock, and I if I have a cut that's 150 mil long, and I put a jigsaw shape in there, that 150 mil length effectively goes to about 250 mil of meeting faces, which is a lot of walls, a lot of surface area to join. The Einstein tile has less than that, and it does not interlock. Yet I've found that when I'm using this, I can actually use less material in the print, and it stays just as stable as the jigsaw. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I thought about writing to the scientists that discovered it, but I didn't think they'd be really interested in hearing from me.
Yeah.
So
you never know.
Just go, it works.
When it was discovered, I don't know what they would imagine the practical uses of something like that would be, but this is a very clear practical use because things have to be divided up and fitted together. It's interesting. I think they would. So, but what I can see is you've used the Einstein piece, but you haven't divided it into all of those.
I'll let them join. Yep. I'll let them join up together to just create larger parts to print. I've worked out where I can allow the parts to be bigger, and I can where they need to be smaller. So joining up a bunch of smaller parts will create a far stronger component than just printing it as big as possible. I have my own Discord channel for all of my guitars, and it's actually really cool. The guys and girls in there just constantly amaze me with the way that they're taking my files, and they're not changing them. They're keeping them exactly the way that they are. Sometimes they'll ask me to change it so that instead of using a Telecaster neck, they can put a Strat neck on it or whatever. But they're the color schemes and things like that they come up with for the guitars is fantastic. Some of them are just like, okay, man, you just created something way cooler than what I ever did. I love it. That's awesome. But one of the questions that pops up is often, can you join these parts together so that I've got a big printer, I can print it all in one piece. Just like, no, you don't want to do that. That's not a good idea. Yeah,
and that's because of strength. It's not a good idea because by having them in smaller pieces, that they've got more wall, more surface area, and they're more strength.
More walls. Yep, more walls. The wall thickness on each part is typically between 2.4 to 2.8 millimeters thick. So when two parts come together, we're essentially going to 5.5 millimeters almost.
Yeah.
I'm constantly impressed. Like, I'm always impressed by the strength of these 3D printed parts. And I'm starting to believe that we don't give enough credit to plastic in general because it's very strong. I just printed some bridges, and there's a lot of tension from the strings on those bridges, and they are holding up perfectly, like zero problem. And I just had like 20% infill or something on those things. I'm just constantly surprised by the rigidity and strength of these 3D printed parts.
Yeah. It's, it's something that I constantly come across as an applications engineer is that people don't give credit where credit is due. There's two things that I'm constantly fighting against in this industry. One of them is that there's the old story of PLA suffers from creep under tension, where basically under tension PLA which is a type of material, will flex, but the understanding is that, you know, when it's held under that flex for a while, it will actually, you know, take that shape, take that form. So consequently, I'm constantly up against this. Well, you can't make it out of PLA. It's going to flex, and then it'll stay that shape. And it's just like, you know, they are right in the sense that yes, PLA will creep and will hold that new shape. But the problem is that what they're not understanding or not thinking about is that if you enter into a design stage where you know there is a potential problem and you work around that problem in your design stage, then it's no longer a problem. And if it's still a problem, then you just got to go back to the design stage.
Right. So like, I remember like being in grade school, and there would be these engineering projects they'd give us, like, you're going to make a bridge out of straws or toothpicks. And it's all about engineering something with strength out of these pieces of material that you wouldn't think have strength. But if you engineered it properly, you could make a bridge out of straws that would hold the weight of like whatever it was you're trying to hold the weight of. Or you could use like popsicle sticks, whatever was the material. And it's not just about the material, it's about how you design it. And if you think in terms of like how bridges, like, you know, where cars go over, are constructed, you can take into account how that's designed and use that in your actual design process. So for example, I made some guitar bridges, and they look like car bridges, like bridges that you would like drive over like a river or something.
I've seen those ones of yours.
Yeah, and they are very, very strong.
Yep. So there's that one, and the other one that I come across is it's a discussion about UV stability in materials, and ABS used to be the go-to. But if you wanted something strong and could handle UV, you'd use ABS. And now another material which is almost identical to ABS has come out, called ASA. ASA is about the same strength, basically the same material. However, it is definitely more UV stable than what ABS is. Cool. So you'll often see the conversation pop up like, oh, I need something that's UV stable. It's just like, I don't use ABS, it's crap. Use ASA.
Can I just interject? By UV stable, do you mean the UV affects the structural integrity of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's this thing going around in 3D printing, additive manufacturing, that I don't use ABS if you need it to be outside because it's crap. Basically, it doesn't hold up. And I just sort of I think about it, and I look outside on my street, and I look up and down my street, and I see all these cars parked there, and they've all got ABS bumpers, they've all got ABS interiors. So like, just because something is better doesn't mean that the prior one is crap. It's still just as effective as it always was.
It's the exact opposite of guitars, where when something's new and it is better, people think it's not as good because it wasn't originally used.
Yeah. Of course, you know, using polymers to make a guitar, I hear that one quite a bit.
Yeah. Look, there was a phrase that went round in this country a number of years ago where politicians said, we've had enough of experts. You know, we don't want to listen to experts and their opinions. We trust our gut instincts. We know what we want. But of course, why wouldn't we trust experts? An expert in the field can tell you the properties and how to use them of a material and how to make it work.
Yeah.
Like you give those kids in that lesson all the straws to make a bridge with, and you give them a lump of metal, they'll probably make a better bridge out of straws because they won't have the tools to use the metal. It's, I mean, that's a shit analogy, but that example is meant to be that it's all about knowledge of how you use it, the right tools, in the way that I trust if I was to print one of your guitars and put it together, it would hold up. Whereas if I was to make a 3D printed guitar the first time, the way I would do it to try and make it hold up is ask you. how I divide it up and how I do things, because inevitably it'd be one of those things like I do remember when I was first making guitars, nothing's it's visually looked like it was right, but because I hadn't learned any of these things or had any of the skills, I didn't really know how things worked and how things put together. So over time, it wouldn't be correct. It wouldn't work. Intonation was an issue when I first started because I didn't understand it. I try and teach myself.
Yeah, I've wasted many rolls of filament because I thought I had. I was making silly mistakes. Like I did work out my bridge location, and I had it all squared away. Absolutely convinced I knew where everything needed to be. But what I hadn't taken into account was that I had measured the saddle positions with all of the saddles retracted back as far as they'll go. So of course, I had the scale length perfect, provided nothing needed to be allowed to go sharper.
Yeah.
Or flatter, I guess, because there was I couldn't bring the saddle back any further at all. And the other one that really stumped me was like doing the moment I started using a neck break angle on the guitars, which then meant that so everything is now like that, and I'm measuring on a flat surface, but it's now everything's moved 3 mil forward, sort of thing. And when you're using like a Tune-o-matic bridge, you don't have 3 millimeters of movement if your intonation is not perfect.
Yeah. Hey, I just thought I'm going to put your thing back on. I know you've designed it 3D printing in mind, and that's your thing. But I'd love to see someone take this in CAD and put it on a CNC as well. I think they would look incredible.
Oh, I mean,
because what I mean by that is when you see the curves, how that reveals wood grain. And one of the things I like at bevels to reveal on a good bit of wood, it adds something to me to the way things flow and the way things look. But saying that, the thing I saw when you were holding your guitar up, and just now obviously on the rendering here, is the cracks in it make it feel to me like it looks like axe-like, right? It looks like a Viking weapon or whatever, but it looks like it's been cracked and reforged with those marks in it. It's brilliant. It just really works with it, those cracks, and I think they lack when you take it away. Almost, it adds something
to an extent, yeah. So, what I was actually initially planning on doing was, I can't remember the art form, but it was like the Japanese method of repairing like porcelain and ceramic, where they glue everything back together with gold, and so you'll see like a broken teacup, but it's got all these gold lines running through it from where the ceramic cracked, and it was put back together. So I always thought I was going to do something similar with this. Then I printed it, and it was just sort of like, no, I actually like the subtleness of it instead of making it stand out.
Well, I'm sure, like you say, one of your many people that ends up printing it will come up with some other way of adding color or putting it together that would work.
Oh, I'm sure. And I just see in the chat, Owen's nailed it. Yep. Kintsugi is the method. But just before we take this one away, I'll just flip this bad boy over. You can see all the curves continue on the back.
Oh, I love the jack. Is that the jack socket at the back?
Yeah, that's a jack. That was a it's there because I forgot to put it on the side. And once I'd done it, I suddenly realized that the side edge is not big enough to take a jack. And was like, oh crap. To put it on the side, I'm gonna have to go back through all that pain I just went through. So I thought, screw that, not doing that. We're going for a 30-degree angle in. So consequently, there she is.
Oh, I think it's very smart. So tell me, when you first printed it and put it together, how did it feel?
Foreign. It felt foreign. Kind of hard to describe why. I think it was because it was such an unknown shape. It was an unknown shape that I'd been staring at for 2 years, because the overall shape of this body hasn't changed in the 2 years. It's just the way I've done some of the things has changed. And I had in my head how this thing was going to feel. So I had this preconceived idea. And then once I actually put it all together and I sat down with it, it was just like, no, this is not what I was intended. I like this. This is great, but this is not what was in my head. So I'm accustomed to it now, and I love it. It's awesome. Really surprising how comfortable it is to play. Actually, it's even though like it doesn't really have a belly carve on the back, the way that it fits over the top of your leg. Because I'm also like when I sit down to play, the guitar doesn't sit on my right leg, like sort of thing. It's like more like a classical guitar. I hold it at a 45. As you can, I don't know if any of you have seen my latest sound clip I did of the Meteora bass. Yeah, it's 45 degrees. That's how I've always sat down with it. And the lower bout is nice and wide, and it forces your legs apart, and you actually sit in a very natural position with it. And at that point, I don't know if either of you guys or anyone else in the chat, sort of plays sitting down with the 3D print, not 3D printed, but at that 45-degree angle, you pretty much have to support the guitar. It doesn't self-support usually, whereas this one, it actually sits there perfectly.
Oh, great! And that's how I play.
That's exactly how it was intended, and it was just I just managed to get my idea onto the screen and make it work perfectly. But no, that was sheer fluke.
Nice. Hey, look, a quick question from Barry in the chat. Have you printed any 3D? Sorry, have you 3D printed any archtop or hollow bodies?
Oh, Barry, that's a deep dive question, but I'm not gonna deep dive into it. But I will go on to yes. So not so much hollow body, but I've done thin line guitars before, which are available out on the website. As for hollow body and acoustics, I have. I'm still working on perfecting the process, and I'm getting really close. So the biggest thing I had to deal with was I had to make my own tone wood. Essentially, there was a few things that start to come into play in that. Like a lot of acoustic builders discuss like the Janka hardness of a material, and that's great, but I have to talk in density, and the two actually are not the same. Density and Janka hardness, typically, the higher it is on the hardness scale, the denser the material is. But there's some woods out there that one might be higher on the hardness scale, but when you actually look at the dried weight of the material, it's actually lighter than another one. So I went through this whole process of basically trying to find a material that had a low enough density but a high enough hardness on it, where basically the top would resonate in some, something similar to an acoustic. As for hollow body, like your arch tops, like your 355s, not really. It's not my cup of tea. So I sort of like building one actually hasn't been that high on my priority list. I've got an Ibanez, what is it, a 75 TVGW something or other. Basically, it's a sort of jazz body floating bridge. Absolutely beautiful guitar. Lovely to play. Like great action. Everything's beautiful on it. I just don't like it. it's just not my sort of thing. And it's not because it's it's got the floating bridge with a big speed that I don't like it. If anyone actually knows me, they know I have this passion against big speed tremolos.
Really?
And I think it's just because of how many times I've had to restring them that I'm done.
Hey, if anyone is watching that doesn't know, we've got an archive. There's a link in the video description, and on it there's all the most of the past episodes. I'm still uploading some of them. I do a couple a week. And before Ray was regular on here, we had a few episodes where we were just talking to Ray really in depth. And you've definitely on some of those. In fact, one of them we claim that you developed a new that 3D filament was the new Tonewood debate or Tonewood killer, because you talked about the fact that you could hear the difference in your instruments with different filaments, or maybe it was the different infills you were doing. But it's definitely worth going back to look at those if anyone's interested in that sort of chat.
I kind of spiraled after that moment where I built, because I was one of those guys that would be, on the sideline saying the wood doesn't make a difference, it has zero effect on the guitar at all. Shit, it does. I don't believe it makes a massive difference with electric guitars in particular. It doesn't make a huge difference. That's like, I won't pick up a guitar because it's made out of a particular type of wood. That's no, I don't like the sound of that wood. No. I think everything else in your signal chain has a far greater effect on it. However, to turn around, and now I now say that it actually does have an effect. It's not the wood. It's not the wood. It's the density of the wood that has the effect. Every piece of wood has a different density weight, and at the end of the day, the denser the material it is, we typically tend to find those guitars are like warmer and fuller in sound, while your lower density materials have your brighter sounds. So like your cheap pine guitars, they have no sustain on them, so many people say, because it's lower density. Well, your variations in densities of wood is typically about 0.5. They sort of vary anywhere between 0.5 of a gram per cubic centimeter up to 0.95 grams per cubic centimeter. Whereas with the material, like the filament, it has a much wider range. You can go anywhere between 0.8 of a gram up to about 1.6 grams, and anywhere in between. But of course, when you're talking about a guitar, it's a solid piece of wood. There is no air gap. But when we're printing, it's not solid. It's got that infill, as we know. At which point in time, I've got complete control, theoretically, over that actual density of the material of the body, and how that resonates. And then Glenn from Mr. Glenn's Pickups, he and I were talking about, and he's like, yes, but you've also got to consider how the sound waves react with all the different air chambers and air pockets inside the guitar. And I sat and thought about it for a minute, and then I had to walk away because it was just like that just did my head in. It's like I can't even comprehend how to work that one out. It's just like he's got a point. I've got to consider it, but I don't know what to do with it. So,
well, I look forward to the results when you get. I look forward to the point where you've got some result on your 3D printed hollow body acoustic guitars. I'm sure
I will show them one day. I've been saying that for like 12 months now, but I'm just
Yeah, no rush. When it's right, it's right.
It's one of those things that I can't show this half-ass because then all of your purists are going to be like, see, we told you can't do it. It can't be done. It's got to be one and done deal. So I'll get it there. It's not like it's going to be the guitar, the acoustic I've seen floating around on what's named made out of particle board. So
yeah, Barry just mentioned that.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, Barry. Let's be honest though, like that OSB board guitar, I've listened to it in the clips, and it's just like I'm listening to it that's been recorded on a phone. It doesn't sound great. I wouldn't be wanting to pay a lot of money for it, but it is proof that sometimes you just got to do it. And Mark, I think I've commented on one of your videos once before, something similar. It's just like you come up with these ideas that it's just like, why on earth would you try that? Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. And then Mark does a video on it, and it's just like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Hey,
just
Ray, before we go,
people push boundaries.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, and I feel like you do that totally. The pushing boundaries. Before we go, I'll put it in the description because it's not there yet. But where can people download your prints from?
So they're available on colts3d.com.
Right.
Just search for Tasmaniac Guitars. But also, you know, check out my Instagram profile, which I think is in the link down below. You'll see there's a lot of interaction going on there with other luthiers and things like that. Plus, there's links back to where the files are. But also, if you do actually just want to talk about and learn more, in those links there is also a link back to the Discord channel, and those guys and girls in there they'll talk all day. And they're happy to talk about it, just like me, as you can probably tell. I've taken up the entire time with me.
It's brilliant you've built a community like that. Fantastic. So look, when Ray said he was around to back on, I don't think he knew we were just going to grill him for 45 minutes. So thanks for that, Ray.
That's all right. It's been a while, and as we always know, I've always got a lot to say, sometimes too much.
Yeah, but what was good is the initial, for me anyway, what I found interesting is that all this initially came from the fact you had a new guitar design. Don't see that very often.
Yeah. Actually, there was one last thing I just wanted to say very, very quickly. Last night, my partner and I managed to prove just how strong a 3D printed guitar is when last night she accidentally backed into the Meteora, the Bass 6, and started the chain reaction where it toppled over, fell down onto the ground. It took the Jackson with it, and it took the Telecaster with it, and they've all hit the ground. 6-string on the Meteora is about half a step out, and the top panel where the volume control has cracked. The black and red Jackson style thing is perfectly in tune, and the 7-string is still in tune after all sort of landing on a pile on top of each other.
Nice.
She also has a bruise on the side, a bruised lump on the side of her head. Sorry, hon.
I would say that if it was a Gibson, there'd be a new headstock coming in.
It's done. We all know this one.
Great, fantastic. Well, look, Ray, I know you're traveling a lot with work, but hopefully we'll see you again in the next couple of weeks or whenever, sometime soon.
Yeah, well, all of that's settled down now, so I hope to be back on a little bit more regular basis with you guys.
Fantastic. And just so if anyone is new and watching, because I noticed a few names in the chat that I hadn't seen before, look, we do this every week, almost every week, and anyone's welcome. So if you want to join in the chat, obviously you can join in with the chat by typing, but if you want to come on one day, just send me a message. It's always good to have a new face. And same with anyone that's been on before. If you want to come back, that'd be great. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ray. And see you all next week.
See you next time.
Bye.